Here we are in the Republic of Ecuador, which is named after the equator.
And that's where we are right now.
To be honest, when we were planning our trip to South America, Ecuador wasn't the country that we put too much thought into.
Originally, we just thought it was the place you had to get to the famous Galapagos Islands. But upon doing more research, we realized that there is so much more that this country has to offer, and in this video, we're going to take you through an itinerary that will let you see the very best of mainland Ecuador.
As we hope you know by now, we are Mark and Asa, and we have spent the last few months exploring South America. In our previous video, we took a trip into the Ecuadorian part of the Amazon rainforest. It was an eye-opening experience, and we would highly recommend checking out that video after this one if you haven't already.
Let's get into what there is to do in the rest of Ecuador then, because we can assure you that there are lots of other things to do apart from visits to the Galapagos and the Amazon. The first spot we landed in is the largest city in Ecuador. No, not Quito, Guayaquil. This place is on the southwestern coast and is the country's main port city. We spent a couple of days exploring, but in all honesty, there isn't much to do there, and we have heard that it has a reputation of being quite dangerous, so if you fly into Guayaquil like we did, just be careful.
A 4-hour bus journey east will take you to our first recommendation, the stunning little city of Cuenca. A walk around the historical center here is a great way to get introduced to the Ecuadorian lifestyle.
Centro Histórico is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site due to its many historical buildings, the most impressive of which is the gorgeous blue-domed cathedral called Catedral Nueva. If cities and historical buildings aren't your thing, get yourself on a bus to Cajas National Park, located in the highlands just 30 kilometers west of Cuenca. This lake sits at 3,850 meters above sea level, and a hike around it takes about an hour. It's a nice day trip away from Cuenca, and it actually reminded me a bit of some lakes we went to back home in Ireland last summer, minus the ancient castles.
Speaking of ancient ruins, there is one more place we'd recommend you to visit during your stay in Cuenca, and that is a trip to see the biggest Inca ruins in the whole of Ecuador, Ingapirca.
Unfortunately for us, today is Monday and ruins are closed, so we can't enter, but luckily we can walk around and see them pretty close. I would love to touch them because you can see Machu Picchu and I want to see how they build it very close, so you can put paper in between like this without modern tools and stuff like that. But I'm still glad we came because here is a cool village, very authentic, with a lot of llamas, alpacas, so kind of nice, yeah, day out.
We took the bus this morning from Cuenca to a town called Canar, and then just hopped on a connection. The bus from Cuenca to Canar was $250, and then the connection was $1. So it's a nice place to come and see. After spending some time enjoying the lovely city of Cuenca, it was time for some adventure. We stopped in Riobamba and had planned on visiting Mount Chimborazo, the highest peak in Ecuador, but the weather didn't allow it, which would be a theme of some of the places we tried to visit here. This is something that we actually regret not getting the chance to do, because Ecuadorians believe that Mount Chimborazo is the highest mountain on Earth. Obviously, Mount Everest is the most obvious answer for the highest mountain on Earth, but Ecuadorians think that Chimborazo deserves a shout too, because the peak of Mount Chimborazo is actually the furthest point from the center of the Earth and the closest point to the sun. So it depends on what way you want to measure it, really. Anyway, we still fancied some adventure, and there is no better place for adventure in Ecuador than Banos. Banos means toilet in Spanish.
Banos is the adventure capital of Ecuador and attracts adrenaline-thirsty tourists from all over. One of the main activities to get up to here is whitewater rafting in Rio Pastaza, said to be one of the best places to do whitewater rafting in South America. After a rigorous safety briefing from our expert that left us feeling a wee bit more nervous than we should have been,
Our guide just spent about half an hour explaining how to get rescued from the water.
And it's apparently freezing.
we soon found ourselves on the rapids. We had never done rafting before and had an absolute blast. Our guide told us these rapids were level 4 rapids. To put that into perspective, the scale goes from 1, which is basically just some fast-moving river, to 6, which is extremely difficult and dangerous water to navigate in a raft, and is only for teams of experts. We didn't quite know what to expect, but we couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Must be one of the top things to do in Ecuador. Even though we just got here, it's definitely going to end up being one of our favorite things we've done. Loved it. The company we went with is called Geo Tours, and literally couldn't find one fault at all.
Sticking with the theme of fast-moving water, Banos and the surrounding area is a hotspot for spectacular waterfalls that dominate the landscape. To see the best of these waterfalls, we suggest renting a mountain bike for a day in Banos. We rented ours from a company called Wonderful Ecuador for just $5 each, so this can be a really cheap day out. When you get your bike, head east along Ruta de los Cascara and take in the breathtaking scenery along the way. There are loads of hair-raising activities you can get up to along this route, including zip lining and bridge jumping, hop on a gondola and take a scenic ride over one of the many waterfalls.
So we're not sure if this is supposed to happen or not. We're on this rickety old gondola, and we hope the guy's playing a joke on us. He stopped it halfway over the valley, and now we're just kind of suspended in midair, so we're kind of ready any minute for it to start again.
Our favourite thing we did on this route was a hike to this amazing waterfall. We took this rickety old gondola over the river and ended up in the middle of nowhere in search of the waterfall.
Are we lost?
I hope no.
We're trying to find a waterfall, but the path is getting skinnier and skinnier, and the grass is getting longer up over our ankles. So I can't say anything because you scared the f me. Mark!
We've seen a snake. We've seen a snake.
Well, I didn't see a snake because she scared the out of me.
Okay, it was
And now I can't take a step forward because I'm afraid.
a tiny green snake, but it was so green. Like I've never seen I mean, it's not
I
something
wouldn't
you would usually see in a normal forest. I mean, we are in the Amazon. Okay, let's go.
Back?
Yeah,
Back or forward?
forward.
Eventually we found ourselves at the bottom of this waterfall all on our own and couldn't believe it wasn't a more popular thing to do. There was nobody around.
After that hike, we made our way to the most popular attraction along this route, the Payon del Diablo waterfall. This road is blessed with amazing waterfalls, but this one is really special. It's genuinely one of the highest, most powerful and most spectacular waterfalls we have ever seen.
There are a couple of different ways to access it. After parking your bike in the village, it is just a short walk to the suspension bridge that will give you a stunning view from above the falls. If you're afraid of heights, this will give you the heebie-jeebies, but it is a very rewarding way of seeing this monster of a waterfall. The other way to see it is to hike down for around 30 minutes to get a close-up view of the waterfall. Be warned, by doing this route, you're guaranteed to get wet and dirty, as at one stage you're forced to climb through these narrow caves just to the side of the waterfall. The other way might be scary for people that aren't great with heights, but if you choose this way, you ought to be good at dealing with tight spaces. We chose to go both ways, and both are spectacular in their own way.
Interestingly, instead of having to cycle all the way back uphill, there is a clever service that allows you to chuck your bike on the back of a truck and will take you back to Banos. This service costs just $3 per person and is a perfect way to end your day out. We then took the bus from Banos to Tena and headed into the Amazon for the next 5 days. As we said earlier, we made the whole video about the Amazon adventures, and it was one of the best experiences in South America, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't forget to watch it after this video.
But for now, let's move on to Ecuador's capital city, which was our next stop. Quito itself is a fairly average South American capital city, but a huge tourist attraction here lies around 20 kilometers to the north. Mitad del Mundo, or more simply, the equator.
Unsurprisingly, Ecuador means equator in Spanish, and visiting the center of the world, or mitad del mundo, is a novelty attraction that tourists love.
There is a debate over whether this line is actually the equator or not, as there are reports that modern ways of measuring where the line should be place the equator 240 meters north of this point. Nevertheless, it was equatorish enough for us, and it's a nice day out.
You can also test out the Coriolis effect by trying to balance an egg on a nail. Proper touristy stuff, but kinda cool at the same time.
Around the front of the monument is really busy, and we just walked around the back and it's pretty much the same thing, and there's nobody here, so I don't really know why. Are tourists too busy to walk around the other side?
As with any big city, there are lots of things to do and see, but in our opinion, this was one of the best things to do in the vicinity of Quito, and we thought we'd share it with you. Another place we loved in Quito was Cathedral Basilica, which gives you amazing views of the city. After a quick stop in the capital, we made the short journey to Latacunga. Latacunga is the ideal place to base yourself for a few days to squeeze in both Quilotoa Lake and volcano Cotopaxi. When traveling, you're really at the mercy of the weather sometimes. And it happened that when we arrived to Ecuador, the rainy season kicked in, and it was pretty cloudy at the most places we visited. On the day we went to Quilotoa, the weather changed rather quickly, and we ended up with this view of the lake. As we were running on a tight schedule, we didn't have enough time to revisit this place, but it's supposed to be really spectacular, just not for us.
Never mind, these things happen and are all part of the experience, as not everything is sunshine and rainbows, and you have to take the good with the bad. The next day, we set off from Latacunga to do something that was so high on our bucket list before coming to Ecuador: hiking on volcano Cotopaxi. Cotopaxi is the highest active volcano in the world, reaching a height of 5,897 meters above sea level, which is even higher than Kilimanjaro in Africa. Originally, we planned on attempting to make it to the summit, but authorities are worried about recent volcanic activity, and it's illegal to climb Mount Cotopaxi without permission, so we couldn't do it. Instead, we took a private tour for €23 each. We hopped in the truck and drove through Cotopaxi National Park, visiting a couple of lakes and a museum on the way to the base camp where we would start our hike.
The first part of the hike is pretty straightforward until you reach Jose Rivas Refuge Point at 4,864 meters above sea level.
I'm about 5/6 of the way up Cotopaxi, so we're going to try and make it as far as the glacier. We got caught in a bit of a hailstorm. It seems to have passed a wee bit. The breathing is getting a bit light, so we're going to try and make it up now in the next 20 minutes or half an hour, hopefully. Just a wee tip: when you get to the refuge, don't buy the hot chocolate, even though it might be very tempting. It's disgusting.
After the mangy hot chocolate, we set off for the glacier and eventually reached the height of 5,200 meters.
Woo! We made it to the glacier, 5,000 plus meters on Cotopaxi. Tough climb from the refuge, but we're glad we kept going. Delighted we made it here.
We made it. It's raining and I feel sick.
Let's go back down.
On the way up, we had a great view of the summit, even though the weather was changing by the minute. This part of the hike is quite challenging, especially when you have to walk up steep inclines on the fresh ash. The fresh ash does make it easier on the knees on the way back down though, so we made it back to our truck quite quickly.
So we're on the way back down, we're nearly at our truck, but the views on the way back down are insane. I think it's a bit clearer now to what it was when we were walking up, so unreal.
Overall, this was a great way to experience Cotopaxi National Park and do the hike. And to get there, all you have to do is hop on the Quito bus from Latacunga at the bus station and tell them you want to get off at Cotopaxi. I think it was $3 we paid, so it's really not expensive. They'll drop you off, and straight away you'll see the trucks sitting at the side of the road, and they're the ones that you get the private tours into the park with. So yeah, it's really easy.
One last stop on our Ecuador adventures, and this could possibly be our favorite place out of all of them: Mindo Cloud Forest.
Probably not as well known as other places in this diverse country, Mindo is a bird watcher's dream and it's well worth the effort to get to. From the La Ofilia bus station in Quito, take the 3-hour bus to Mindo, not San Carlos as it says on Google Maps. Mindo is situated in a cloud forest. That's a thing we had never heard of before researching about this place, but it is basically a lush green jungle with low-sitting clouds constantly dominating the treetops. There are loads of activities to get up to in Mindo, and here are the 3 best in our opinion.
What we gonna do?
Feed hummingbirds, I think. I hope. Oh, there's one there.
Feed hummingbirds from the palm of your hand. Hummingbirds are native only to North and South America, with the largest population found in Ecuador and Colombia.
How is it?
I'm afraid to speak. The noise, I don't know if you can hear the noise on the camera, but the reason they're called hummingbirds is because of the noise their wings make as they're making a figure of 8 motion. They're the only birds in the world that can make a figure of 8 motion and hover in the air. Also the only birds that can fly backwards.
We didn't expect to enjoy this activity as much as we did, but it was such a nice thing to do.
In this lid there is some water and sugar mixed together and the hummingbirds seem to like it. There's a bird that's over there looking at me and he's heavier than the hummingbirds. Apparently the average hummingbird only weighs the size of like a 5-cent coin. But this guy, it's so obvious that it's him because he weighs about twice, 2 or 3 times the weight.
So colibris have a special place in my heart. When I was a kid, I made a research for a biology class at school, and I was so impressed that they're so tiny, but my classmates were not really listening or something, and I was like thinking, why are you not impressed? They're so small and so cool, and now being able to hold them so close and their colors are so fascinating. And this whole experience is $5, and I have a lot of things to planned here in Mindo, but it's already so worth it just because of this one thing we did for 10 minutes. It's incredible, amazing.
A good tip when traveling in Ecuador and pretty much all South America is that a lot of restaurants have a menu of the day, or menu del dia in Spanish. Yeah, so if you just ask for their menu del dia, it's usually $350. And you'll get soup and a main course, which is usually a choice between chicken and chips and salad or fish and chips and salad or something like that. And then usually it comes with a dessert as well and a nice drink. This one is $3, so definitely great value, and always keep an eye out for it when traveling around here. The currency of Ecuador is US dollars, and if you're coming here, don't carry notes. I was going to say any larger than 20, but if you carry 20 you'll get change like this if you use it. So if you come to Ecuador, make sure to bring small money. We had a $100 bill when we came here and nowhere took it. Eventually then we went to a shop where we were buying something for like $20. Tried to use the 100 and I had to sign something to say it wasn't fake, and he was looking at it for a few minutes. And also just don't bother bringing any big notes. Bring small change, and if you're using 20s, expect to get this back.
The next thing we recommend doing in Mindo is a nocturnal walk. If you watched our last video about the Amazon, you'll have seen that we went on a nocturnal walk there, and to be honest, this walk in Mindo was surprisingly every bit as good as that one. We seen lots of spiders, again, and this time we seen lots of stick insects and frogs.
Can you try? Come on, vamos.
We also seen some sleeping crimson toucans, and we were tempted to try to wake them up, but we didn't want to disturb them. They looked too cute and comfy lying on the branches. The most exciting part of our nocturnal walk was when our guide put his hand into a tree and emerged with a huge tarantula in his palm. It actually wasn't scary at all, as the tarantula was in its natural habitat and minding his own business. Just as long as he stays in his home and doesn't come near ours, we'll be fine. It made the walk really special, as spotting wildlife is really what this place is all about, which brings us to our final recommendation for Mindo.
As we said earlier, this place is very famous for bird watching, but the tours into the cloud forest with bird experts can be a little bit pricey. It's like $60 per person, so we decided to do something cheaper, and that's where the yellow house comes in.
Right behind me, this is Purple House, and it is this is Yellow House, believe it or not, and this is where you enter. Buen dia. This is where you enter the forest, the jungle, whatever you want to call it, to see the birds. You pay $6 here to be able to enter their gates, pretty much. You could stay here for $35 per night, and that includes all of the trails through the jungle as well.
We had full access to all of the bird trails, but all we were really after was the opportunity to spot the native toucans.
We're going looking for it.
Which can be quite difficult to spot if you aren't looking in the right place.
We're on trail 3 of the Yellow House trails, and we have seen some birds, but not that many. We've seen some birds fighting.
There are green tires flying.
Okay. We've seen some birds fighting, I think, in the trees, and we've seen a massive, big vulture-looking bird flying through the air, and just behind me right now there's some green parrots. Unfortunately, no toucans yet, but we're still only halfway through, so fingers crossed. And to be fair, even if we don't see toucans, the view of Mindo and the surrounding jungle is incredible, as you can see. So yeah, it's worth it.
We were about 2 hours into the hike and kinda lost hope of spotting a toucan. But then...
So I was mooing at the cows. Moo!
Mark, it doesn't sound like...
And all of a sudden a toucan appears. Coincidence? We were actually kind of resigned to the fact that we weren't going to see toucans, and we're nearly at the gate where we came in, and then Asya looks up and there's this black and yellow beaked beautiful bird with the biggest nose I've ever seen. We just seen a flock of toucans flying all above us, and we got some nice shots. But we're here doing the Yellow House trails, and you start here, and we actually went to do the trail 3, which actually says toucans on it, to try to find toucans. We didn't see any toucans on that trail, and then we were on the way back, and we were actually almost at the exit again when we looked up, and there were 3 or 4 or 5 toucans flying all above us, literally just before any trail starts at all. So you might get lucky. It's currently 8:30 in the morning. We started at about 6:15, and we're literally nearly finished, and we were like, oh, we can't see any toucans. And we look up and there they are. So don't give up, keep looking up. Sometimes when you see pictures of birds, they're taken with like these mega lenses, and we don't have a great zoom camera, so like what you see now is just literally what you would see as you're looking into a tree. So it's not like they were 60 meters away. Those pictures and videos are literally like just in the tree. Really cool. Also, some other times when you see exotic birds, you're in a reserve or some sanctuary. This is completely the wild, and it's an amazing experience to see toucans in their own environment. There you have it. Those are our recommendations for mainland Ecuador. We know that the Galapagos are still going to be the main attraction when coming here, but we just wanted to point out some other amazing places that you can go to when coming to this little tiny beautiful country.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and let us know in the comments which place is your favorite, and maybe you have any other recommendations for those who are coming to Ecuador.
Our next video is an exciting one as well, because we're going to Colombia, and we've heard a lot about Colombia, so we're very excited to go there.
And if you decide to come to Ecuador, we are sure you're gonna have something to remember, just like us.